What is up, guys? Welcome on back to the news with TK. And it looks like an EU trade deal could be done this week, negating a $250 billion trade deficit. We're going to talk about that, China, the Fed chairman, and more, all in today's video. So we know we had the Prime Minister of Italy, Meloni, here last week in the United States negotiating on behalf of the European Union for a trade deal, for an EU trade deal, which would end about $250 billion of a trade deficit. Now, are they going to eliminate the entire 250? Maybe not, but even 150 to 200 of negating that deficit would be huge. And there's a lot of things going on with that. You know, I've seen a lot of news here lately saying that tariffs are inflationary, when by their design, tariffs are actually deflationary. And we've seen stuff with like the ECB cutting rates in Europe. That would be the equivalent to our Federal Reserve. But our Fed chairman isn't doing his job. I don't know why. Jerome Powell. It just looks interesting, and the liberal media heads are literally exploding and talking about subjects like making conjecture, saying things like, oh, stuff is increasing when stuff is actually going down. Everything from gas prices to oil to eggs to groceries, all of those prices are coming down. They're not going up since the tariffs have started. So let me just show you how retarded these people sound.
Meanwhile, The Atlantic's David Frum writes, quote, as Trump's policies wreak havoc, the policy's author needs an excuse and someone to blame. Jerome Powell is that someone. The president floated the idea of firing the Federal Reserve chair after Powell warned Trump's tariffs will increase the cost of living. A reminder, folks. The Fed chair serves a 10-year term specifically to insulate them from political pressure. It's been that way since 1951, and presidents cannot fire the Fed chair without cause.
Catherine, I want to just have us take a quick listen to Powell and Trump and regarding the impact of tariffs. Let's listen to this.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects.
We have a Federal Reserve chairman that is playing politics, somebody that I've never been very fond of, actually.
Tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation.
I think he's terrible, but I can't complain because we had the most successful administration economically in the history of our country. I think we're going to do even better this time.
You know, it just really presses so hard up against the nerve when I hear Donald Trump talk.
To be clear, the tariffs are abysmal. They are a terrible choice, whether the tariffs are coming on or off again. Terrible decision making for this economy. Firing Jerome Powell would be much worse. So much worse. There is the potential that it could set off a global financial crisis. That's because we know historically that countries that have less independent central banks tend to have much worse inflationary outcomes and much worse outcomes on other economic dimensions as well, because the U.S. economy is so central to the rest of the world, and because our debt is used as a benchmark for the rest of the world to determine basically what are the safest of safe assets. Treasuries are considered the safest of safe assets. If suddenly all of that is politicized, we no longer have an independent central bank that's in charge of the money supply, that's going to set off cascading effects throughout financial markets around the world.
So you see that, and a lot of them are saying, oh, you know, legally he can't do it. But actually, if you didn't know this, the Fed was set up in 1913, right, through the Federal Reserve Act. And it was originally set up to maintain financial stability, right? It's completely legal for the president and I mean President Trump to fire Jerome Powell for cause because he's not doing the job. Every other reserve central bank right now is cutting down rates. Um, I mean, look at China. All right, China right now. Granted, they're getting destroyed, and I love the comments. People in the comments, oh, China's not losing in the trade war. Okay, that's why they've been pumping out stimulus for the last 7 days to prop up their markets. Factories are giving employees extended vacation time, paid vacation time, and all this other crap because they can't build stuff. Container ships are actually dumping. I can't believe this is happening, but they're actually dumping containers in the ocean because they just don't even want to pay the tariffs if it comes back or goes into the U.S. It's just ridiculous. And that's what tariffs, in case you didn't know, tariffs are literally a deflationary instrument. And with inflation coming down, including here in the United States, the Fed chair should be cutting interest rates. We've seen that the ECB has now cut rates 7 times. 7 times. Let me show you this screenshot from the president. And the president posted over on Truth that the ECB is expected to cut interest rates for the 7th time. And yet, too late, Jerome Powell of the Fed, who is always too late and wrong, yesterday issued a report which was another and typical complete mess. Oil prices are down, groceries, even eggs are down. And the USA is getting rich on tariffs. Too late, should have lowered interest rates, like the ECB long ago. But he should certainly lower them now. Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. What I also find funny is Powell doesn't understand that, yes, you did sign a 10-year term, but just like the FBI director, resigned when the president became in, you serve at the pleasure of the president. Yes, you do sign a 10-year term, but the president can get rid of you for cause. Period. And Powell says he won't resign. Let me roll that clip.
Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
Jerome Powell, you said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave even if you ask him to.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But
do you believe
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast. Believe me. Yeah.
Now, with all of that, you already saw what the president said there and said what he said in that clip. China also reached out and issued an olive branch during this week. We saw that when the president went to 245% on tariffs. And China basically through the CCP said, look, can we stop having all this negative, we want to have negotiations and talk with the United States, but can we stop the anti-CCP rhetoric that's coming out of the United States? And knowing President Trump and the troll and absolute petty king that he is, he dropped COVID.gov. Let me show you this website. So he dropped COVID.gov and lab leak with, I can't. So after this, we see that China is ready to talk now. This is what, and I hate to say, like, the pettiness doesn't really need to be there. I love it personally, but the pettiness doesn't need to be there. But it lets China know, like, look, we're not going for the Mickey Mouse BS that the last administration did and administrations prior did. We're going to get some of our money back. You can either figure it out or go bankrupt. Now, China does have a couple of other tools in their toolkit that they could use. Could they make a move on Taiwan? Yes, I think they get a mud hole stomped in their ass if they do that. But that's a possibility. They could get into some shooting war with the Philippines. I've seen some stuff going on with China and their Coast Guard, with the Philippines Coast Guard back and forth shooting each other with water cannons and the like. All of that is possible. But I don't think Xi Jinping wants to commit political unaliving. I have to say that. There's a word you can't say on YouTube anymore, so you have to say something else. Anyways, so do I think that's going to happen? I don't think he gets into a shooting war, but I do think there is a possibility that the president will have to come out and say something nice or do something nice for Xi, because they're big on this whole saving face BS. But I'll leave the question to you. Do you think we get a significant start in China talks this week? And with the EU possibly signing one of the first trade deals, I thought Japan and or Korea would be clamoring or beating down the door to be first. Now it looks like it could be the EU, and maybe the European Union has Maloney to thank for that. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Give the video a big thumbs up if you like what I do. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And as always, stay petty, my friends.